To say it's been a weird year for movies so far is a vast understatement. Theaters have been shut down since March, Tiger King happened to Netflix, and summer blockbusters keep getting rescheduled. Lucky for film nerds like myself, there have been some big releases from this year available on streaming services or for rent. Now, I've been consuming all of the recent content humanly possible in order to keep up with what will surely be a very bizarre awards season. The Academy Awards have been pushed back to April 25th, 2021, followed by the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which will open on April 30th. The pushback is due to, of course, coronavirus uncertainty. Those two words, coronavirus, uncertainty, I would love to never hear those words again. Remember when we thought James Franco and Anne Hathaway hosting the Oscars was the weirdest thing to happen to awards season?
The rest of your life, everyone will refer to you as Academy Award winner James Franco.
What do you mean, everyone? Like even my mom? That'd be weird if my mom called me Academy Award winner James Franco.
We had no idea what was coming. Well, today on Watchwoman, I want to discuss two films from this year that are sure to be in the awards conversation. I'm talking about The King of Staten Island and Bad Education. One of them was a hit for me, and one of them was a big ol' miss. And since I always prefer to receive the bad news first, let's jump right into the miss. It's just, I love Judd Apatow as a person, and most of the time as a director. So I wanted to love The King of Staten Island. I'm also a huge fan of his entire family. How do you get so many talented people in one family? Here's a hint. Most of them are women. Not only does his wife share my name, but she is my favorite parts of films like Big Daddy, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Blockers. Judd's daughters, Maud and Iris, both have budding careers right now. Iris was perfectly cast on the Netflix series Love, and Maud is everywhere. She is killing it on HBO's Euphoria, and she gives a good performance in The King of Staten Island. Unfortunately, most of the film just did nothing for me. Confession time. I don't get Pete Davidson. Okay, I'll rephrase. I don't get why people like him as an actor. I find him to be an interesting person. Very intriguing and mysterious, lots of tattoos. I'm also not a huge SNL fan right now. I was more of a fan back when the Spartan Cheerleaders were their biggest hit.
So you want a victory? Well, that makes you a wisher. One thing that is for sure, you ain't no Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know.
Once again, I'm dating myself, but I think my age is an important factor here. Mostly because I grew up with Apatow's work. First with Freaks and Geeks when I was in high school, and then when The 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, I thought it was the greatest comedy I'd ever seen since Old School. And funny story, when I first moved to LA, The 40-Year-Old Virgin was the first movie I saw at the famous Hollywood ArcLight Theater. And none other than Jack Black was sitting behind me. It was my very first celebrity sighting. It was all so simple back then. Going to the theater, eating your popcorn, having hope for your future, and laughing hysterically at Steve Carell yelling, Kelly Clarkson! We're gonna make it through this, guys. Slowly but surely. So wash your hands and wear the damn mask. Okay, back to the Pete Davidson thing. I watched a few of his SNL sketches on YouTube and checked out his first indie, Big Time Adolescence. And I'm just whatever about him. But to say something positive about the guy, I do think it's very brave that he talks about his mental health on screen.
When you're doing comedy and you're making a movie like this that has, some discussion of mental health issues in it, what are you trying to say to people who are struggling by being so open about all of this?
Oh, just that, I have these issues and I'm able to do this, or they let me do this sometimes. So whatever you have it's going to be A-okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have this shit. I think they just don't really talk about it.
It's important because young people watching SNL need to know that the young guy with tattoos, it's cool for him to be vulnerable and open up about his struggles. Now, let's talk about the actual film. This is Apatow's 21st directing credit. He's a heavy hitter in Hollywood, known for focusing on the comedy or dramedy genres. Some of his most known films are Knocked Up, This Is 40, Trainwreck, and the aforementioned The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Some say he has a habit of putting the spotlight on overgrown man-children who don't want to grow up. That type of character seems to lead most of his films. And I can't argue with that sentiment, especially when it comes to the film in question. And to be honest, it seems a little tone deaf in our current cultural climate. The King of Staten Island stars Pete Davidson, Marissa Tomei, Bill Burr, Maud Apatow, and Bel Pally. The film follows Scott, who has been a case of arrested development since his firefighter dad died. He spends his days smoking weed and dreaming of being a tattoo artist until events force him to grapple with his grief and take his first steps forward in life. It's worth noting that this film is somewhat autobiographical, considering Pete Davidson's father was in fact a firefighter who died some years ago, and in the film he still lives with his mother, and Davidson has been known to brag about still living in his mom's basement.
I live with my mom, kinda, so I have like a basement that's mine. It's like, that's like an apartment, so I live underneath her. Yeah.
Besides not buying Davidson as a leading man, my biggest gripe with this film is the pacing. It was meandering in parts, a lot of scenes were repetitive, and it was just too damn long. I know that's Apatow's style. He wants things to feel lived in, but this one just missed the mark. And unfortunately, I found a lot of the heartwarming parts a bit cheesy, which worked for me in films like Knocked Up, but did not strike a chord with me here. The biggest travesty here was not seeing more of Belle Pally, who I found extremely interesting and vibrant. She was the saving grace for me, and honestly probably why I didn't turn it off halfway through. The wonderful Pamela Adlon also makes a brief appearance in a few scenes, and those are small victories for the film. I strongly believe that this film would have benefited from having an actor play Davidson instead of Davidson playing himself, even though the film is loosely based on Davidson like I mentioned before. I couldn't look past Pete Davidson being Pete Davidson. If you want to check it out for yourself, The King of Staten Island is streaming on Amazon Prime and available to rent on other streaming platforms. All in all, I was disappointed and would have to rate the film 1.5 Funfetti cupcakes out of 5. Now are you ready for some good news? You can stream the next film on HBO, and it is so good! I'm talking about Bad Education, starring Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney, and Ray Romano. This film is directed by Corey Finley, and it's only his second feature film. His first feature, Thoroughbreds, wasn't my favorite film. To be honest, I thought it was trying just a little too hard, but he hit the second one out of the park. First of all, the two main stars are two of my favorite actors working today, and this is the best thing Hugh Jackman has done since Logan. And don't you wish you could just forget The Greatest Showman? I mean, he's good in it because he's good in everything, but the movie is just over the top with a capital T. Allison Janney is on point in Bad Education, which she is in literally everything she does. Her Long Island accent in this film is something to marvel at. I rewatched I, Tonya recently, and man, did she deserve that Oscar.
Lavana, it's Lavana.
I'm so sorry, but there's no smoking on the ice.
Oh, well, I'll smoke it quietly then.
Bad Education is based on a true story, and my favorite kind of story, one that is stranger than fiction. You couldn't make this shit up. Bad Education follows the beloved superintendent, Dr. Frank Tizone, of New York's Roslyn School District. His staff, friends, and relatives become the prime suspects in the unfolding of the single largest public school embezzlement scandal in American history. The tone of this film is dark, but also comedic and a little satirical. If you've ever seen Alexander Payne's Election, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And as a filmmaker, this tone is really hard to do well. There has to be the perfect amount of tension mixed with real-life absurdity. The camera work is incredible in this film as well, bringing you in closer and closer as this crazy scandal comes to light, showing the audience that the walls are closing in on these average people who took extraordinary measures to keep up with the Joneses. There's commentary on class, the education system, and the illusion of perfection. I don't know whether or not to feel sad for these poor bastards or to condemn them for the white-collar crimes they're committing. And that's a testament to the screenplay and the direction, because you start to feel bad for these people who are, lack of a better word, shitty. Speaking of the screenplay, it was written by Mike Makowski, who briefly met Dr. Tizone as a child before the scandal broke, and also attended Roslyn High School in the late 2000s. Makowski bought the rights to Robert Kolker's New York Magazine article on the subject and returned to his childhood hometown to compile research for the project. He said he expected to write a film portraying Dr. Tizone as a straightforward villain. However, the interviews his former teachers and neighbors revealed a much more nuanced portrait of Tizone that informed the eventual screenplay. And it gave Jackman so many character traits to work with. A relatively new talent to come out of this film is Geraldine Viswanathan, who plays Rachel, the student reporter who writes the story of the embezzlement scandal in the school paper. I first saw her in the film Blockers, which I mentioned earlier, starring Leslie Mann and John Cena. She was a standout in that film, and she becomes the audience's voice of reason in Bad Education.
This is 2 pages of contractor bids, building materials, and zoning ordinances.
Yeah, it's journalism.
Our readers are 15.
Although more prestigious publications came out with the story, it was Rachel's school paper, the Hilltop Beacon, that broke the story. This story has so many twists and turns and layers, it's like peeling back an onion. Most importantly, it's so fun to watch. I was entertained from start to finish. I laughed out loud, and I appreciated the meticulous direction by Corey Finley. So if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, I cannot recommend this film enough. With that being said, I'm going to give Bad Education 4.5 Funfetti cupcakes out of 5. What did you guys think of these two films? Leave your comments below, click the subscribe button on your screen, and due to life being pretty crazy these days, I have decided to start releasing episodes every 2 weeks instead of every week. But don't you worry, this is the perfect opportunity to go back and watch all those films and TV shows that I've been yammering about for the last month. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Watchwoman. See you in a few weeks.